Hi, everybody. My name is Elena, and welcome to Imaging USA Unpacked. Today we have Kirsten Palladino, who is the founder of Equally Wed. She is a world-renowned expert in the field of LGBTQ plus inclusivity, and she was an instructor this year at Imaging USA. As a little refresher for people that either took the class and this was months ago, or people that did not attend and who are just attending now, a little fresher, her class is called Serving the LGBTQ plus community with affirmative and inclusive practices. You had some glowing class reviews as well. I would love to read a couple of those if you don't mind. One person wrote, probably the most valuable session of the conference. Hope to see more programming like this in the future. Me too. Relevant and so real, just wonderful. Much needed topic and speaker, informative and well done. Another person, Kirsten, was so pleasant even when someone challenged one of her strategies. And last but not least, wonderful insight on the topic and action items one could implement into their business. All lovely things. People loved you, and I know this was your first time attending. So tell us a little bit more. What was your experience like this year, and are you going to be teaching again?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me and sharing all those wonderful things. Everybody loves to hear wonderful things about themselves.
yeah.
So I'm glad that people got a lot out of it. I had a fantastic time at the conference. I, it was so well organized. I just thought like it's, I knew where to go at all times. I felt like the speakers were really cared for, but I felt like the attendees, it felt like it cater to just everybody who was there, just incredible volunteers. I met some of them. They
Hmm.
really warmed my heart just with their passion.
Yes.
So, yeah, I had extraordinary time and I have put in to be a speaker in Texas. So I hope that I get to return.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, the so one thing that I was very interested to learn about, which I didn't know from sitting in on your class for a couple minutes this year, was that you're not a photographer. You're just an expert in all things inclusivity, and this is your job is teaching small business owners how they can incorporate this into their business. Can you tell me and tell the people who are maybe stepping in for, and they weren't at your class, what you do and a little bit more about your business, Equally Wed?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I've been in the media for going on 24 years, and for the last 14 years, my wife and I have owned and operated, and we founded an
Hmm.
LGBTQ plus wedding magazine called Equally Wed. And for the entire time, and what our continued mission is to validate and value uh, the LGBTQ plus community in marriage, honeymoons, anything that's a celebration of our love and commitment and who we are, as well as educate about inclusivity, marriage equality, the challenges that we still face, celebrating families, all of those things. So I've been fortunate enough to just basically do work for my work on my passion or love what I do. I guess that's really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And along the way, I have launched, I guess maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, I saw a huge need for education in the creative sector of society, needing to learn how they might want to work with our community or already do, but feel like there's something missing in their understanding. And so I wanted to fill that gap
Hmm.
and educate. So it's selfish. It's all about serving my community better so
Yes.
that we have more inclusive and affirming vendors to choose from for all of our special events.
I love that. And I apologize. I'm so excited to chat with you that I completely skated over the fact that this is an interactive webinar. So for people that are joining and people that, signed up and are here today, please drop your questions in. Whatever you're excited to learn more about or want to follow up on, this is your chance to ask questions. I think I see one, so I'm going to check too to see what I love this. Okay. I love it. Jumping right in. Lauren asks, would you recommend incorporating pronouns into your client intake forms, or would you ease that into a discovery call? So, great question.
Yeah,
How, yeah.
great question. I love that you asked it. I would
Hmm.
recommend putting it in your client intake forms for the reason that when you ask for someone's pronouns or give them an opportunity to share them, this is another green flag saying, "Hey, I get that not everybody identifies along the gender binary or as male or female, that you might have a different gender identity and different pronouns.
Hmm.
So this is me telling you, I get that." And I also recommend that sometimes people might put preferred pronouns, definitely. And I'm not saying that you would, Lauren, but for anybody else listening, we don't use the word preferred anymore. We just say pronouns, or because preferred implies choice and we don't choose
Yep.
our gender. So
Hmm.
the other thing I would also recommend along that is not make it required. Not everybody's comfortable sharing them. Also,
Hmm.
some people just don't know what they are. Even in the LGBTQ plus community, we always give people an opportunity to share their pronouns when they submit their real weddings or love stories. And we get all kinds of things in that form that's not a pronoun. So the education still has to happen within our own community as well. That's a great
Hmm.
question.
I love that. I love that. That's such a great, and it's part of, so I see that question as like part of a larger discussion we were having earlier on, like essentially if we step it back a little bit, you had mentioned people that are most receptive to what you have to teach. The easiest to teach people are those that know that they could be doing better, or they have an interest in learning more, and they're not coming at it from this perspective of I know everything or I think I know everything. um, I kind of wanted to just follow up on or ask you so we can kind of open this conversation up to the rest of our audience. You mentioned the introspection aspect of starting this work. Um, could you speak a little bit more to that? What questions to be asking yourself before you begin taking these steps toward greater like inclusivity in your business?
Sure. I think first, well, I'll say that oftentimes when I speak or I do any training workshops, the question comes to how do I know that I'm not being performative or tokenizing? And so this leads into that. I think it's really important that before you do any work to show that you're inclusive or to that you're not doing it to check a box. You're not doing it
Hmm.
because it's the thing now. You're not doing it that because you feel like you're supposed to. We as in the LGBTQ plus community really only wants you to do this if it is in your heart, not to get woo woo, but I am woo woo, but if it's where
Yeah.
you if you feel guided to wanting the LGBTQ plus community not only to work with us but to celebrate us and to make sure that the LGBTQ plus community knows that they will feel safe and welcomed and affirmed in your business, if those are your goals,
Hmm.
then you're ready to do the work. But if
Hmm.
you're still thinking maybe you are not sure how you feel about the community, it's important to not take any of the action items that I share. I will give you a
Yeah.
story. I spoke to a community of seamstresses. And
Hmm.
after I did my training, one of them asked a few more questions about what to do on their website. And then she shared that she didn't believe in marriage. Well, she didn't believe in same sex marriage.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, what brought you to this training workshop? And she
Yeah.
said, oh, I know that, the community needs people to hem their attire, and so I'm just
Yeah.
available for everybody, but I don't believe in it myself. And I was really moved to tell her that that's not necessarily the type of business that we want. Basically, putting out all the
Hmm.
green flags that we're looking for. We really only would like to work with people who believe that we deserve equal rights
Hmm.
and who support our marriages.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people that are joining, I just saw another person join. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Feel free to drop in questions that you have and add to the conversation if you like. We're just talking about kind of, I guess, where is your heart at, and checking in with that before you start this work, which is I think any part of any type of activism really, and making moves toward inclusivity. Someone asked in the chat, I really like this, should we incorporate asking about pronouns in job applications and or interviews?
I saw that. I think if you
Hmm.
are in a video call or you're in person, I think it's a great thing to do. One recommendation that I have is the way I think pronouns are best spoken about is to first share your own. And
Hmm.
so you could say, my name is Edward. Speaking about
Hmm.
the questioner, my name is Edward,
Yeah.
or hey, I'm Edward, and my pronouns are fill in the blank, maybe he, him. I'd
Hmm.
love to give you the opportunity to share yours, or would you
Hmm.
like to tell me your pronouns? And so, especially with jobs like interviews, don't want to put anybody in a weird spot where they feel like they have to lie about their pronouns because maybe they're not ready to share their true pronouns.
Yeah.
But just give them the opportunity, and they say, oh, and they might say all kinds of things to you, and you can take that to mean whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah.
Some people might say something negative. Well, then you have another
Yeah.
answer about that person if you want them on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really I love your answer too, because it really speaks to the in these social situations. Oftentimes it isn't easy for a person who maybe like has a like so-called like different set of pronouns as we
Mhm.
might typically see someone and think, oh, they probably go by these pronouns. Being that person myself, I look for an opportunity to share that, and it's not always easy given the kind of social interaction you're having with someone. So thinking about that, and offering that like avenue for someone to share, it like greases the skids, like it makes it so much easier to then start that conversation from this basis. If someone sees me and they're aware that, I could be anybody and I might identify anyway. So, yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
really huge. It's really important.
It is. Can
Um,
I add something on that too?
yes,
I
please.
think, like, if you are addressing a group of people, or you're doing, maybe there are a few different people in that interview at the same time, or just as a practice, if you're asking one person's pronouns, make sure to ask everybody's pronouns, not just the person you feel like you couldn't possibly guess their pronouns, because it's just a good reminder that
Yeah.
people's pronouns don't necessarily, or and also are not required to line up with their way that they express gender. So
Hmm.
if they are wearing a dress and have lipstick, they still might have they them pronouns,
Yeah.
another set altogether. So just a good reminder to always check in with everybody if you're going to check in with anybody.
That's so smart. And it makes people feel less singled out too,
Right.
like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess I'm kind of curious in terms of foundational concepts that so you have a certification course,
Mhm.
and your class at Imaging USA, from what I understand, is kind of based off of that, a little bit of what you teach in your certification course. Could you
Mhm.
just give us a little bit of background on some of those like foundational concepts? That's
Sure.
probably it's a huge question, I know, and
No,
this webinar
I
is
welcome
only
it.
yeah,
I
yes.
welcome the question. No, thank you so much. I was in my conference talks. I usually only have 1 hour, and there was so much more that I wanted to continue to share and dive deeper into. So I
Hmm.
built out a course. It's 6 hours, but you can break it into whatever you want, a weekend or over 6 months. It's you have lifetime access.
Hmm.
So I start in the beginning in the foundational. Who is the LGBTQ plus community? We're not just gays and lesbians. We have a rainbow of different types of folks, and so it's that kind of foundational knowledge there, as well as like the history of marriage equality and some of the challenges that our community faces. And then I go deep into different ways that each type of creative professional, mainly centered around weddings, uh, but any, if you're a photographer or florist, every different discipline or the main disciplines all have their own track. And I do encourage everybody to attend all of them to really understand the full spectrum of like what it takes to put a wedding together for an LGBTQ plus couple. And you'll be able to better serve your client no matter, what discipline you have. But photographers specifically, it's a pretty long section. And we also do a bonus of how to create an authentically inclusive styled shoot, because that's one of the questions we get a lot is, okay, I want to market to this community. I'm inclusive. I've done the course, but how do I get the initial imagery to attract the LGBTQ plus community? And so my answer is always, you can create a styled shoot as long as you do it right. And so that we have a bonus course for that is complementary with the certification course. Gosh, and there's so much more to that as well. But I don't want to talk for 10 minutes about it.
No,
But
I love it. I love that. I'm just
um,
thinking of all of there's so many ways that this can come in handy. Like you don't have to be a wedding photographer. You can just be a photographer or a
right.
senior, high school senior photographer.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
could you share that stat again about the like percentage of, I think, Americans who fall into this, like into the rainbow category?
Oh,
Do
yes.
you,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually, I have, well, oh gosh, the stat, I think we're close to 10%. Um,
Uh-huh.
uh, because um, we have more people feel comfortable sharing in surveys that they get
Hmm.
who they are. Society has given us more language to realize that somebody maybe you identify as demisexual and you only recently realize what demisexual is, and therefore realizing also that, hey, this is me and I am in the LGBTQ plus community type of learning that doesn't necessarily go with like maybe 14 years old, the light bulb goes on and you're like, I think I'm gay. There are so
Hmm.
many, like I said, there are so many different identities. And so that I think has lent itself to why our population is growing. I swear we're not
Hmm.
recruiting. We're just the expansiveness of understanding
Yes.
is what's happening, and society becoming, more, I don't like the word tolerant, but
Hmm.
generous
Yes.
with who gets to matter.
Yes. Yes. It's a huge spectrum and it encompasses a lot, and a
Hmm.
lot of people can, find that they belong within that.
Yeah. I
Um,
did want to just real quick.
mhm,
I'm going to put this in the link in the chat, but
please.
there is at my presentation, I gave a 50% offer,
Mhm.
50% off of the course, and I'd like to make sure that
I love
everybody's
that.
attending today just has that if that's something that interests you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. That's wonderful.
You're welcome.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Um, the more the more training we can get out there, I think it just makes for a better society, but also just makes for a better company, and just makes folks better
Yes.
as professionals. Because, like I continue to say, and what like I was saying on stage, is that you can have the most inclusive heart and just think that everybody's wonderful and deserving of love, but if we can't see it on your social media, your marketing, the way you talk to customers and their families, every interaction that you have with folks, if it's not apparent through all of those things, then you need more training, and
Hmm.
that's totally okay. It's not something that most of us were brought up with.
Yes. And even people, as we spoken about earlier, even if you find that you belong in this category, it doesn't mean that you automatically know everything to it. Uh,
Right.
there's a lot to learn, and I find myself learning and asking questions from my friends
Hmm.
all the time, which is really really important to stay kind of up to date and aware. This is something you
Mhm.
can learn now, but you're going to have to continuously access this information and see what there is to learn so you can better serve people. Um,
Mhm.
I love this question that came in. Lauren writes, Kirsten, how do you deal with haters or trolls online when you
Ah.
post work of LGBTQIA couples?
Mm,
When you post work of, yeah,
right. Yeah, that's a great
yeah,
question. Well, so when we have a strong policy with, like, when we share real weddings or LGBTQ plus families, engagements, anything like that in our social media or on our website, we immediately delete any negative comments. I mean, it's not necessarily, it's not freedom of speech when people are attacking people on
hmm
on our the things that we own, whether it's our threads or our site. And so we're in the business of validating and protecting
hmm
are the most vulnerable people in society, and people who've taken the time to share something that's so sacred to them, like their love, their children, anything like that. We're just going to protect them that way. I do
hmm
get my own, you know, I laugh because that's all I can do is laugh. I get my own, like, hate mail, or people come up.
yeah,
Sometimes I'll speak at a conference and my session's just right in the middle of the whole day. So it's not necessarily that somebody signed up to hear from me.
hmm
And so people have all kinds of things to say to me afterward. And I have really thick skin in this regard. I stand very strong in my queerness, and I've never felt like I needed to apologize for it. Uh, I think that I try to just remember their humanity, even if they don't want to afford it to me. I think so many folks are just so certain in the way they see the world, and anything different threatens them. And so
hmm
it doesn't bother me, I guess, is the short answer.
yeah, yeah. We chatted earlier about kind of developing a mission
Mm,
statement or kind of
mhm.
a what is that called? Like I guess an inclusivity statement for one's website and kind of
Right.
what goes into that. And
Hmm.
yeah, this question reminded me of how you answered that because you had said in essence, I am coming at the conversation not to argue with people on
Mm,
this fact that's a fact for me.
right.
It's kind of like, are you ready to meet me in conversation like
Mm,
once like the dust is cleared on that, because that's not what we're um,
right.
talking about. I guess could you speak a little bit more to that? I'm
Yeah.
not explaining this
I
very
th- no,
well.
that's okay. I remember one
Yeah.
thing that we spoke specifically about was that we some people get upset that we're telling them you can't say this anymore, you can't say that. And for
Mhm.
me, what I feel like I'm doing is giving people an opportunity to learn what they can say if they want to be inclusive and affirming of
Mhm.
everyone in their business. So it's not that I feel like we're not shutting people down, we're just expanding minds, but not everybody is interested, and that's where they're at. It's not my goal to try to change anybody's mind. It's to offer education and
Mhm.
research backed information when people are interested in receiving it.
Perfectly said. Yeah, it's the education aspect and not changing minds. Just here to
Right. Yeah.
educate and be a force for good. I love that. Um, I guess beyond that, there's so much we could dig into. What do we want to talk about more?
Yeah.
Um,
I will say that in terms of an inclusivity statement, I think it's excellent to
yes.
have a diversity and inclusivity statement on your website as an external statement. And then also, if you have a team or you have anybody who you collaborate with frequently, somebody even like a second shooter, your day of gig workers, I think it's important to build out a company diversity and inclusivity statement that's not public facing, but that you share with anybody who's going to represent your business. Share it with them, have them sign it, because no matter what they think and feel on on their own time, on their you know I was about to say weekends, but if you're working on the weekends, but on their own time, no matter what they think and feel, that they adhere to your business practices when they're representing your company. A couple of
Mm,
things I think are important to, you can find millions of examples online of people's diversity and inclusivity statements, but it's really important to tailor one to who you really are and just try to think, take some time to think like, what, who do I care about? Why do I care about them? What matters to me? Who, what are some of my core values? And try to shape that. You can even jump on Chat GPT and start writing one there, but then
mhm.
make sure that you um, finesse it to really sound
Yeah.
like you, and make sure that you're using words that you would really use. They might give you kind of a breakdown of uh, an outline, but then you really want to fill it in with what matters truly to you, and what folks can expect when they're working with you.
So it's such a great point. You can use the AI tech to like give you an outline and maybe give you an example, but absolutely, it if you just use ChatGPT purely to write your inclusivity statement,
Yeah.
people that use it are gonna know. But yeah, I love that. Kind of be a little bit uniquely you, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of people have. There's ways that this touches everybody, truly.
Hmm.
Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's also important, if it's true for you, that you are continuing to educate yourself about how to continue to serve people of all races, all genders, all faiths, all
Mhm,
abilities, because
mhm,
inclusivity sometimes gets put in, applied to just one community, but you can be inclusive to the neurodivergent community. You can be size inclusive. If you're a photographer, we don't want just skinny folks on your website.
yeah.
If you have specialty or experience or knowledge about different, working with different skin tones as a photographer. And Petronella did a great job, I know, at Imaging, talking
Mhm.
specifically about that. Uh, you know, if you have those goals, even if you haven't gotten, a maximum, or a large amount
Yeah.
of education in it, and still put those as what you're working on. I've seen a lot of D&I statements that talk about, and here's what we're working on to be better.
Yes. I love that. That's so authentic too, to be like, this is what
Yeah.
we're working on.
Mhm.
Um, someone asked a question.
I
Someone
thought I
asked
had
if,
it
oh,
notifications off. Sorry.
I know it makes me want to check mine too. They asked, and this is a question that just came to mind also as soon as we started talking about what we just chatted about. If you haven't photographed LGBTQIA plus couples
Mhm.
before but want to start, what would be a good first step? I wanted to add on to that too, for people that live in communities where it's like, where are these couples? Where
Mm,
where are these couples to photograph? Where do you start if that's something that you genuinely want to start doing more of to
right.
show,
Yeah.
to have work to
Um,
show for it?
well, the studies show that we're everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
matter of making those genuine connections. I would first make sure that your social media and your website reflect your inclusive values, at least in language alone. And we talked a lot about that in Kentucky, but I would add, really making sure that you're using gender neutral language, things like that. And then to start making connections, I would start following photographers in your area who already work with the community, and start
Mm-hmm.
engaging, commenting on social media, maybe reaching out to them and say, hey, do you need a second shooter? Maybe you've been working in this business for 30 years, but you've never done an
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ IA plus wedding or shoot. Maybe they can bring you in so that you can get that experience and be able
Mm.
to showcase your work.
That's such a great piece of advice. I love that.
Thank you.
That's so
And then the
smart.
other thing is to
Yeah.
find equality organizations near you, and most of them have galas or events they need photographed, and volunteer time, and get to know the community.
That's also a great point. I think more people. I love hearing from photographers that they volunteer their time to photograph,
Mm,
these, walk to end Alzheimer's or various,
yeah.
events that are happening in their community. People need photographers for.
My
Um,
favorite is in Atlanta, we have dog shelters of just a ton of like pit bull mixes,
yes.
and photographers come in and do these incredible shoots to show how lovable these animals are. And I
Hmm.
mean, it's just one of my favorite ways photographers volunteer their time.
Yes. And it's funny, we both live in Atlanta. Um, I guess, what would you say for people, and not even, this is not even photography related, but people that, I guess I'm kind of asking, like, people that don't identify as LGBTQ plus,
Mhm,
how, if this is something where you're genuinely like interested to learn more about the community and potentially meet more people so you can just chat more with people, and because I think this is a problem for a lot of people, is they have an interest in learning more, and
mhm,
they don't have anybody in their life, in their like immediate sphere, that is kind of an example of that for them, um,
mhm.
in a way that's not like a tokenizing, like, I need a gay friend.
Right.
What are some ways you might just, like, what are some suggestions you would have for someone that wants to just like get out there, meet some people? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I, it really depends on where you live, and but I would say that, again, there are equality organizations that, are largely supported by our allies. It's not
Hmm.
just a bunch of queer people getting together; it's people outside of our community who are there as well.
Hmm.
And that's one way to do it. Going to conferences, Imaging USA had a nice healthy group that healthy as in like large
Yeah.
amount
Yeah.
of LGBTQ plus folks who I met. Wearing a pronoun pin definitely helps people realize, hey, I can come up and talk to you about
Hmm.
this. But different conferences, especially ones that build themselves as being LGBTQ plus inclusive, and you can check out their website and marketing material. Those are great ones to go and start to build your community of allies, not necessarily whether they are or not in the community, but you will find out who is and who isn't along
Yeah.
the way in an organic manner. And then also, again, following, go to Instagram.com/equally wed, start following photographers who we feature. Follow
Hmm.
their work, see what they're doing, and start interacting and build a community that way as well.
I love that. Such good advice. Yeah,
Thanks.
use social media for good. Use
Right.
it to go create some great connections. And I love what you said earlier about like finding people in your area, photographers in your area, who might be willing to like let you tag along and be a second shooter, or kind of helping out in ways, and being able to dabble that in that sphere of, and helping this type of, you know this
Right.
community. um I guess I'm curious, is there, but beyond, I guess I wanted to ask about a little bit more about Equally Wed, actually.
Mhm.
um would you be able to speak a little bit more to what led you to start this business 14 years ago, which is, I think,
Sure.
so cool that you and your wife started that
Thank
together.
you.
Yeah.
Well, people say that the best businesses, I'm not saying the best business, but we love it. But the best businesses came out of filling a need or a void. And
Hmm.
for us, when Maria, who also goes by Mo, they're my non-binary spouse. I use wife often, and they're still okay with it because it
Hmm.
gives us that visibility in the world.
Hmm.
But when they proposed to me, I was just elated, as many people who get proposed to are. And
Yeah.
one of the first things that I did, this is 2008, is I went to Barnes and Noble, and I collected all the magazines, the books, and brought them home and laid them all out on our dining room table. And
Mm.
as I started to flip through all the magazines, my heart started breaking because, again, 2008
Mhm.
modern times, in my opinion, at that time,
Yeah.
we were nowhere. There was no one who looked like us or loved like us, and it was. it was such a shock because I thought that we were better than that in 2008. And
Hmm.
the more I looked for inspiration for people who did look and love like us, the more my heart was getting broken. So
Yeah.
that was a huge factor. And then when we started planning our wedding, finding vendors who wanted to work with us, weren't just willing to take our money, but really wanted to work with us, was really hard. And in Atlanta, yes, we're in the South, but it's also considered like the gay mecca of the South. We
Hmm.
were turned down by so many different types of vendors, photographers, florists. People either ghosted us entirely because I was very upfront about who we were, because I'm
Hmm.
like, break my heart now, not later.
Yeah.
And it was such a struggle. And then it was a struggle with some family members might not, didn't want to come and things like
Hmm.
that. We just had hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. I was I am, a writer and editor, and I was marrying a graphic designer and web developer. So we decided to put our powers together and
Yeah.
create something for our community that we didn't have, and which has
Oh.
the articles to showcase real weddings, but also give practical and really tailored advice for our community, as well as a directory of inclusive vendors so that you don't have to worry. You can know when you hire these people that you're going to get people who are passionate and ready to serve you.
I love that so much that and it
Thank
is
you.
heartbreaking in like 2008 we would think that it would have been a little bit more welcoming at that time, but
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
I
you really
know.
identified that need.
Yeah.
I it's that part that you said also about not just willing to work with us, but enthusiastic
Hmm.
to work with
Yeah.
work with us. It's your wedding. It's your
Yeah.
wedding. Like you want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
excited about the people you're hiring to make your
Hmm.
cake, to take photos.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah,
photography is such an intimate business. I mean, you're right up
yeah,
there, and so you really only want to work with people who are not grossed out by you, not having secret hateful thoughts. All of those
yeah,
things are just like, yeah, it's a
yeah.
job. We don't want that. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing, for anyone who's like, the math isn't mathing here, we got engaged in '08, made our decision that something needed to change, got married in '09.
Hmm.
And then because planning a wedding is like a full-time job, and we also had full-time jobs, we waited till we were back from our honeymoon to start planning the Equally Wed, and then we launched the
Okay,
following year in March 2010. So, do you
I
want to
see.
explain that? That's just something that it would be bothering me if somebody else was giving me odd
Perfect.
years.
Oh no, no, it made sense to me. Um, well, goodness, this has been so nice.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover, but overall, I think we covered so much today, and it's been so the questions have been lovely. Thank you for asking questions. It's not always I think it's a topic, unfortunately, that people feel a little afraid to ask questions on,
Sure.
diversity and inclusion. But the only way you can learn is by asking questions and
Hmm.
learning, and that goes
Right.
for all of
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's good to be
yeah.
curious.
And for anybody who is interested in, I dropped the link in the chat as well because I think you dropped a link for your course,
Hmm.
a half off deal. So I dropped that in the questions bar. If anybody's interested, it's there. Um, and just thank you for being here. We're so excited. This has been such a great program. People really loved it, and there's such a place for it. There's such a need for it. Um, is there anything else that you would like to say or kind of, yeah, and any
Hmm.
last thoughts?
Oh gosh, I think to it's the same way I ended in Kentucky, but to give yourself grace doing this
Hmm.
work because it's not easy. You will be challenged along the way. Always, continuing your learning journey, but also you'll be challenged by your peers. But just remember that you are helping to change the world and make it a safer place for all for the entirety of the LGBTQ plus community, and we appreciate what you're doing.
And don't underestimate your impact just as one person.
Yes, that's a great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a huge impact on others. So
Hmm.
go put out some more
Absolutely.
kindness into the world, more
Hmm.
understanding, and
Hmm.
yeah, I love it. I love this conversation
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you. I've had a
Thank
great
you for
time
being
too.
here.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
I look
And
forward
then
to it.
also, if anybody does, find me online, feel free to
Mm-hmm.
drop me a DM or email me because, if you don't have an LGBTQ plus friend, you do now,
Yes.
and I'm happy to help you.
Yes. Follow Kirsten on Instagram. Equally Wed is your equallywedpro.com.
Yep.
And yeah, stay tuned. This has
Thank
been
you so
lovely.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
this has been
you.
lovely. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care.
You too.
All
Thanks.
right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.